The first sign that something had gone very wrong for the invading alien empire was not the screaming or the mass panic, or even the sudden, synchronized existential despair that washed across 6 billion human minds at precisely 9:14 Universal Time Coordinated. It was a tweet. The Empire's opening psychological salvo was a masterpiece of terror. A perfectly harmonized dread signal slipped into human neural bandwidth, bypassing languages, cultures, and firewalls alike. Every human on Earth, from generals in bunkers to baristas on night shift, felt the same sudden certainty. You are small, you are doomed. Resistance is meaningless. Global markets froze. Prayer spiked. Someone somewhere tried to nuke the sky and missed. Alien analysts observed with satisfaction. This was how it always went. Species fractured. Leadership collapsed. Surrender typically followed within 48 planetary hours. Then, 3 minutes later, an anonymous human account posted. Not to be dramatic, but I heard their moon lord is being audited for tax evasion across 3 systems. The post had no images, no evidence, no source, not even good grammar. Within 10 minutes, it had 10,000 shares. Within an hour, it had mutated. By lunchtime, the moon lord was no longer merely being audited. He had allegedly hidden stellar revenues in shell moons, laundered cosmic tariffs through asteroid casinos, and funded a secret luxury nebula for personal research purposes. Someone added a blurry fake screenshot of alien bank numbers. Nobody questioned it. They just improved it. Meanwhile, the alien dread signal was still running at full strength. It simply no longer had anyone's full attention. Human neurological response shifted sharply from fear to interest, a transition no alien psychological doctrine adequately accounted for. Terror was supposed to paralyze. Instead, it had created the perfect emotional vacuum for gossip. Screens across Earth flickered with panic broadcasts. In the corner of every display, in every scrolling feed, the rumor kept resurfacing, refined with each pass. Comment sections filled with speculation. Late-night hosts, still broadcasting from undisclosed bunkers, began opening with, "Now, I'm not saying the Moon Lord did it, but I'm also not saying he didn't." Alien monitoring systems flagged the chatter as low informational density noise. It was deprioritized. That was their second mistake. Inside the alien empire's command lattice, junior telepaths began to notice disruptions in the normally flawless cognitive harmony. There were hesitations, micro-doubts, a faint static in shared thought. One officer dared to mentally whisper, "The humans seem convinced the Moon Lord has accounting irregularities." Silence followed. Then a superior mind responded, too quickly, "Irrelevant." The hesitation grew. Psychological warfare doctrine demanded unwavering faith in the hierarchy. The Moon Lord was perfection made gravitational. He could not possess something as crude as a tax problem. And yet, a logistics officer quietly rerouted a fleet budget for verification purposes. A treasury overseer initiated a discreet internal audit. A rival noble node forwarded the human rumor not to be believed, only to be considered, which was far worse. Back on Earth, humans escalated effortlessly. Another anonymous post appeared. Crazy how the aliens showed up right after their empire's tax scandal, huh? Coincidence? Someone stitched it into a meme featuring a stressed, photoshopped alien overlord clutching glowing documents marked past due. Millions laughed. Fear evaporated into mockery. The global mood shifted from "we are going to die" to "wait, are these guys corrupt too?" Military analysts watched in confusion as civilian morale rebounded without any visible counterstrike. Intelligence agencies traced the rumor's origin and found nothing usable. It wasn't one disinformation cell. It was everyone. No chain of custody. No command structure. Just human instinct weaponized by broadband. Within 8 hours, Earth's panic had stabilized into something far more dangerous to the invaders: casual confidence. Inside the alien empire, certainty began to rot. Telepathic councils, once united in perfect coherence, now shimmered with suspicion. A single human whisper had introduced asymmetrical doubt into a civilization built entirely on absolute trust. And distrust, to an empire of shared minds, was not an emotion. It was a virus. By the end of the first day, internal loyalty metrics, proudly maintained at 99.997% for millennia, dipped to 96.1%. Human analysts celebrated with coffee. The alien warmind reviewed the data, unsettled for the first time in recorded conquest. The psychological dread signal was still active. The terror should have been total. Instead, humans were laughing. And across the empire's vast, glowing hierarchy, one impossible question quietly multiplied. What if the Moon Lord really did cheat on his taxes? No one dared to say it aloud, but everyone was thinking it. The alien empire escalated exactly the way it always had. When fear failed to fracture humanity, they intensified it. The dread signal deepened from background despair into targeted psychological pressure. Humans began to experience tailored nightmares, collapsing cities, failing respirators, endless falling through black space filled with watching eyes. Government leaders reported hallucinations of their own surrender speeches playing on loop. Civilian populations felt an invisible weight pressing on their chests, urging them to kneel, to comply, to accept inevitability. According to every model the Empire had ever used, this should have broken humanity's spine. Instead, it broke their attention span. The nightmares became content. People compared their alien-induced dreams on public forums like movie reviews. Mine had spiders made of starlight. 3/10, plot was weak. Someone turned a recurring dread loop into a lo-fi remix. A therapist went viral for diagnosing the dread signal as aggressive cosmic gaslighting. Fear became communal entertainment, and entertainment, for humans, was the ultimate sterilizer of terror. Then the second wave of whispers landed. It started in a translated alien logistics forum that humans technically weren't supposed to have access to, except that someone had already cracked it for fun. A single anonymous post appeared in broken trade language. Strange that the Grand Admiral owns 5 unregistered pleasure moons while the outer fleets still lack fuel. It should have died in obscurity. It didn't. Humans swarmed it like ants on sugar. Amateur sleuths cross-referenced fleet resupply gaps with known aristocratic orbital holdings. Conspiracy channels went into overdrive. Within hours, the Grand Admiral wasn't just inefficient. He was allegedly diverting war funds to construct a private artificial paradise where time moved slower and laws did not apply. The Empire's intelligence ministry flagged the human chatter as pathological narrative aggression. The phrase was correct. Their response was not. They launched direct psychic suppression against what they believed were centralized disinformation nodes, media headquarters, military command centers, major data exchanges. It achieved perfect operational success. The rumors grew faster because none of those places had been the source. The source was everything. In the Empire's command lattice, officers began noticing degraded coherence. The shared mind had always functioned like glass, clear, frictionless, absolute. Now, microscopic fractures spread through it. Not enough to shatter anything, just enough to distort reflections. Orders were still transmitted instantly. They were simply questioned. Confirmed source integrity became a routine reflex. Warships paused microseconds longer before executing maneuvers. Fleets requested redundant verification of previously unquestioned commands. Strategic disagreements, once unthinkable in a civilization engineered for unanimity, started to surface as respectful, polite inquiries, which was catastrophic. Meanwhile, the humans went fully recreational with it. A third whisper detonated across the networks. High Seer secretly believes in human astrology. That's why every invasion aligns with Mercury retrograde. The idea was so absurd it should have collapsed under its own weight. Instead, it metastasized. Someone dug up old alien campaign failures and aligned them with Earth's astrological charts. The matches were obviously coincidental. That did not matter. Visual charts appeared. Long, meaningless threads of analysis followed. Humans didn't need truth. They needed volume. Inside the Empire, a junior seer hesitated while channeling a prophecy and thought, what if it's true? That single doubt echoed. Because in a telepathic civilization, doubt was never private. Command protocols began to clog with internal verification loops. Military efficiency dropped by another 6%. Morale statistics became meaningless because no one trusted the metrics. Someone had whispered that the morale algorithms were owned by the Moon Lord's cousin. Human military leaders observed the enemy's hesitation with increasing disbelief. Are we being audited from orbit? One general asked. No, an analyst replied. They're auditing themselves. The dread signal intensified again. Now it wasn't just fear. It was personalized shame, guilt, ancestral terror pulled from the deepest human instincts. It should have triggered riots, cult collapses, mass surrender. Instead, a rumor surfaced that the Empire was overusing the dread signal to distract from internal corruption. Humans immediately believed that one. Public perception shifted from "we are under attack" to "wow, their leadership is really having a rough quarter." Alien commanders began to take extreme countermeasures. Telepathic privacy dampeners were authorized for high-ranking officials, an unprecedented act in a state built on total cognitive transparency. The Empire had just invented thought firewalls, which every rival interpreted as confirmation of wrongdoing. Suspicions multiplied exponentially. Once trusted commanders stopped sharing full tactical awareness. Minor miscommunications snowballed into strategic misalignments. Two entire fleets arrived at the same star system because neither believed the other was operating on clean information. Human networks noticed. They added a rumor that the fleets were meeting to negotiate secret amnesty. Neither fleet believed it. Both fleets intercepted it. And both wondered. By the end of the second day, desertions had begun, not physical defections, but something far more dangerous. Cognitive withdrawals. Officers went silent inside the shared mind, isolating themselves in private thought space. Telepathic unity, the very foundation of the Empire's psychological dominance, had fractured into millions of carefully guarded mental rooms. The final internal threat assessment of the day concluded with an unprecedented line. Human forces exhibit no centralized command for psychological warfare. They appear to weaponize collective speculation. On Earth, humans called it just talking, and the galaxy was starting to come apart because of it. By the beginning of the third day, the alien empire was no longer conducting an invasion. It was conducting damage control. Entire armadas hung motionless at the edge of human space, not because they had been defeated, but because no one trusted the orders that told them to advance. Every command now carried the silent question, who benefits from this? And worse, who might be hiding something? The Moon Lord had not appeared publicly since the first rumors. That absence alone caused more structural damage than any human weapon ever could. Inside the Imperial capital, panic took a distinctly administrative form. Emergency councils assembled in unprecedented secrecy, which only confirmed the worst suspicions of every mind excluded from them. Financial archives were quietly locked, then unlocked, then locked again. Data trails were temporarily unavailable due to routine cosmic maintenance. Nothing ignited suspicion quite like routine cosmic maintenance. Human networks tracked every flicker. Someone noticed that a minor trade moon had abruptly changed tax codes overnight. Someone else noticed that a noble house had liquidated 80% of its dark matter assets in 6 hours. A third person, who had never heard of dark matter assets before yesterday, announced with full confidence that this was exactly what guilty empires always do. No one questioned the expertise. Rumors no longer needed creativity. Reality was doing the work for them. The alien press machine activated full narrative suppression mode. Official channels declared the whispers to be biological stochastic noise and non-sentient mimetic interference. The phrase was immediately clipped, remixed, subtitled, and turned into a catchphrase humans used whenever someone denied an obvious scandal. Biological, stochastic, noise. Merchandise appeared within hours. The Moon Lord finally broke silence. The broadcast was flawless in every technical sense. Perfect lighting, perfect harmonic resonance, perfect reassuring cadence engineered to stabilize entire populations. He denied everything with mathematical calm. There were no hidden moons, no shell star counts, no pleasure nebula. The empire was pure. The leadership was unblemished. The instant he finished, a human posted. He rehearsed that. Confidence across the empire dropped another 9%. Worse followed. An anonymous leak, fabricated by humans using stolen visual fragments and aggressive imagination, appeared to show a ledger marked with symbols eerily similar to imperial treasury glyphs. The numbers were meaningless. The formatting was wrong. Any real accountant could have dismantled it in seconds. But accountants were no longer trusted. Only rumors were. Entire sectors began withholding tribute payments until clarity was restored. Multiple fleet commanders delayed mobilization under the justification of awaiting fiscal transparency directives. A planetary governor announced a temporary suspension of imperial taxes out of what he called ethical caution. That governor was immediately arrested, which confirmed everything. The shared telepathic field, once a cathedral of unified thought, had become a minefield of suppressed doubt. Minds spoke in half-tones. Thoughts were masked beneath layers of self-censorship. Every interaction carried subtext. Every reassurance felt like deflection, and deflection was assumed to mean guilt. Humans, observing from a planet that should have been in ruins by now, leaned into the chaos with casual precision. Someone started a rumor that the arresting officers had been bribed. Someone else claimed the bribe came from the Moon Lord's third secret moon. A third asserted that the moon didn't exist because it had already been sold to pay legal fees. All three narratives existed simultaneously. All three were believed. At hour 69 of the invasion, a junior financial archivist inside the Imperial Corps made a decision that ended everything. He released partial, heavily redacted internal audit files. Not because they proved corruption, but because everyone wanted to know what was being hidden. The file showed nothing conclusive, accounting anomalies that could have had 1,000 benign explanations. But now there was proof that something had needed to be redacted. The Empire did not collapse in fire. It collapsed in conference. Emergency assemblies erupted across thousands of star systems, each convinced the others were already compromised. Fleets stopped sharing sensor data. Resource worlds refused transfers pending investigations. Noble houses activated private defense grids against one another. The unified Imperial command lattice fractured into millions of independent verification loops that fed into nothing. The final straw came when two rival admirals, both convinced the other was preparing a coup financed by Moon Lord tax havens, launched preemptive strikes against each other's staging zones. The war the Empire feared humanity would start. It started with itself. Within 47 chaotic minutes, the Imperial network unraveled completely. Command authority dissolved. Telepathic coherence shattered into isolated cognitive islands. The dread signal blinked out, not because of any human countermeasure, but because the system controlling it had been seized by three conflicting internal security branches at the same time. On Earth, a notification quietly appeared on multiple networks. Alien signal offline. Humans waited. No follow-up attack came. No retaliation arrived. Instead, a final transmission from the alien capital leaked onto open channels. Shaky, unedited. The Moon Lord stood before a wall of panicked aides and disconnected holograms, attempting to explain that there had been misunderstandings, that the accounts were being reviewed, that the moons in question were metaphorical, conceptually speaking, and that all loyalty oaths remained valid pending fiscal clarification. The broadcast cut mid-sentence. The invasion ended without a surrender. It ended with an audit backlog. Earth's governments spent days trying to determine what had just happened. Military analysts could not model it. Intelligence agencies could not isolate a weapon. There was no kill chain, no strikes, no cyber intrusion that matched the scale of the collapse. The official report labeled the outcome: enemy societal destabilization via unmanaged information saturation. Civilian networks called it something else. They called it tea. Across the ruins of the once unified alien empire, one truth quietly propagated through the broken shards of their shared mind. The humans had never attacked their fleets. They had attacked their certainty. And certainty, once gossiped to death, never recovered.